Living in one of those tropical worlds is a beautiful time. So yes, getting back to the matter of things, this is Curing the Psychopath, people with BPD, trauma, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia, and other interesting things by being the present moment. You know, it's very true. You can't cure everything by being the present moment. Do you know that 25%, 24 to 25% of the people in American prisons are considered psychopaths? And 22% of the CEOs of major corporations in America are considered psychopaths. Isn't that interesting? Robert Hare, you go, buddy. So just as many psychopaths are running the major corporations in America as there are in prison systems in America. That's really cool stuff. So here's to you, psychopaths. So what if we trained all the CEOs and the corporations to become the present moment? They would stop obsessing over money, power, greed. And they would actually become loving and have a heart. And then things might change. We might see the impoverished get out of poverty. We might see the criminal systems change. We might see the prison systems, what are run by mostly corporations now, change. We might see everything change. We have real problems in this country. Real problems. We have real problems all over the world. But it does start at an individual level. You know, for instance, that other guy the other day, he said that you're curing all crime and homelessness by being the present moment. The reason why I agreed with him is because if one becomes present, they're no longer homeless. They're just here, existing, in the present moment, looking at bugs, looking at leaves. When one starts comparing themselves to other people, or one starts to get into the system of watching other people judging them, that bothers an individual. You know, I was homeless for... There was one time I was homeless for about 35 days. I was walking in Missouri, and I was in and out of mental institutions, and when I wasn't in a mental institution, I was homeless. I had absolutely no money. And I started with a little bit of money, and I don't like asking for money, so I spent 5 days without eating, and I would get all my water from like the back of like diners and things like that in hoses. I sleep in the back of churches, and I remember the last day of my hunger strike, 5 days, I was sitting under this tree on this pond. I was watching these ducks fly around the pond, and then they would land in the water, and then they would take off again and fly around the pond and land in the water. And they kept doing that. And I looked at them, and the sun went down, and it started to become dark. And I looked up at the tree, and I looked at the pond, and I realized in that moment that I was Jesus Christ. Whether I was him in a past life, or whether I was Jesus Christ now. And it was the most euphoric feeling. And I was homeless. Had no money. Didn't eat for 5 days. Just had water. I remember on day 3, and on these days I would walk a lot. And I remember on day 3 of not eating and only having water, I was running out of water, and I didn't know when the next village would be. and I was like walking through, I think it was the Ozarks, Missouri, and I looked up, and I barely had any water on me, no food for 3 days, and I looked up, and there were these vultures circling above me, like 3 or 4 of them circling above me, and I looked at them, and I was like, not yet, vultures, not yet. And I started cracking up. And that's life, man. That's life.